Speed podcast here on the CLNS Media Network. I'm Mike Kadlick from CLNS, joined as always by Alex Barth from 98.5 The Sports Hub. Patriots first Browns week, as you can tell by the hat that I'm sporting here, which is only on my head because Baker Mayfield made the Browns cool for a couple of years, and it's a pretty sweet logo. But
wearing a Browns hat on a Patriots podcast when they play the Browns is a choice.
We're reporters, Alex. We're not biased. We are.
All right.
Hey, I had to do it. It's Browns week. It was sitting up there on my hook, and I had to do it.
Fair enough.
I'll take it in the chat if I have to. But we have a ton to get to tonight. We have a bunch of news, which last episode I learned that maybe not every piese of news is big enough.
You found the one piece of news that's actually somehow too minuscule for this show.
Exactly. However, from Monday night till now, we've had plenty come down. So we'll get to that. We'll go through the injury reports, which we've now deemed Injury Thursday here. We will get to all that. Take a look at the offensive and defensive sides of the ball heading into Cleveland on Sunday. Finally, we will, not so much finally because we still got plenty more. We'll get into some Thursday Night Football stuff. We'll grab some Q&A with you guys in the chat, and then we will end it with our famous college football minute. It's a huge weekend of college football, so we'll look forward to that down at the end as well. But let's start, like I said, with the news. For starters, a bit of good news. Matthew Judon named AFC Defensive Player of the Week this week. He had a dominant week, deserves the recognition. He's been a beast, especially this year. But, I mean, ever since he's really signed here, Judon's been dominant on defense. Just a note, I don't know, but any thoughts on that besides, kudos to him?
Yeah, pretty much. He's actually, I was a little surprised to see this. He's the first Patriots linebacker to win it since Kyle Van Noy in 2019, early in the 2019 season, the peak boogeyman era, right? So, the Patriots, Bill Belichick, generally known for linebackers, and we've talked a lot on this show about kind of what's happened with the linebacker position with this team the last couple of years, and just, it kind of shows you. It feels weird, 3 years without a linebacker winning Defensive Player of the Week in New England. I was kind of surprised that it was that long, and then I thought about it, and I was like, well, I guess when, I was a little surprised Judon didn't win it at some point last year. I think he had one game where he had 2.5 sacks. And I meant to go back and look who actually won it that week. I want to say Trayvon Diggs had 3 picks or something. Some corner I remember had an insane week. But it is kind of interesting. You talk about what the changeover of the linebacker position in New England, and that's, kind of, you can see it sort of there.
Right. Well, again, kudos to Judon. He was dominant last week against those against the number one scoring offense in the NFL. No way to chop it up. That's what they were last week. So that's that for Judon. We also had Lil Jordan Humphrey, who has been getting plenty of reps in the Patriots offense at wide receiver the last few weeks. He was waived, ended up clearing waivers, and then returned to the practice squad. And in a sort of subsequent move, it looks like Tristan Vizcaino, the backup kicker, seems to be the odd man out in the situation. So Humphrey back in the practice squad, but could be a potential call-up on Sunday, I guess. Practice squad call-up, depending on how they want to play it. But, Lil Jordan waived.
Well, so they finally made these transactions official a couple minutes ago, actually. So Vizcaino didn't end up getting waived. We all thought he did at practice because he wasn't out there. Instead, they promoted Kevin Harris to the active roster. So they basically, essentially what they did is they swapped Kevin Harris and Lil Jordan Humphrey. There's a whole rigmarole to it.
Right.
The way the NFL works, but the roster's full again with those moves. And yeah, like you said, I don't think we've seen the last of Lil Jordan Humphrey. He's a guy who was very involved. I think they felt very comfortable with that package they had with him. They can still, they elevated him the first week. He didn't get added to the active roster until the second week, but they can still elevate him twice. And then they could always bring him back on the active roster as well. I wouldn't rule that out further down the road. So even though he's back on the practice squad, there was never any doubt, outside of him maybe being claimed on waivers.
Right.
There was never any doubt that they were going to bring him back. His locker was still set up. He was at practice today right there. So, yeah, I don't think we've seen the last of him.
Yeah, that was a guy, too, that when he had such a great camp and ended up getting cut, I remember you had said that you would be kind of surprised if he didn't end up getting claimed.
I'm surprised again, honestly.
Yeah, right. He wasn't claimed the first time, comes back, plays on the 53, plays some snaps, isn't an integral part of the passing game per se, but is out there getting reps, getting snaps in, and played pretty well for what they asked him to do. Doesn't get claimed again. So like we said, LJ's back, at least on the practice squad, and could be a call up. Another little bit of news, I guess, linebacker Calvin Munson also added to the practice squad. He's been here a few times back and forth. we talked a little bit too just now about the Patriots linebacker room, but it's sort of a room that, though they've played pretty well, we've given like guys like Jelani Tavai, his roses multiple times here over the last several weeks, but it's still a room that is really ever changing. Guys sort of popping in and out. Like we said, we got Jamie Collins here too. So thoughts on Munson coming back into the fold?
So to me, he's more of a special teams guy. That's the role the last 2 times he's been here. And anytime they allow a big return or a big play happens on special teams, maybe they get a punt block, a kick block, and then they bring in a guy like this, it stands out. And look, they signed him, but they also worked out Troy Apke. They also worked out, I'm blanking on the name, he's a rookie safety from Kentucky who I thought might be a fit during the draft, who's basically a special teams player. So it tells me that they still believe that there's holes to fill on that special teams unit. Maybe it's Munson, maybe it'll be somebody else, but he's somebody, maybe not this week. They've got some injuries. They're going to need to promote guys. Garrett Gilbert, if Mac doesn't play, you figure is one promotion. I'm still not, entirely unconvinced that JJ Taylor could get a promotion, even with Kevin Harris being added to the active roster, which I'm sure we'll get to here. But he's a guy I think over the next couple of weeks we'll probably see in a game at some point. Played 6 games last time he was here in I forget if it was 2020 or last year. Played 6 games almost entirely on special teams.
Yeah, so alluding to what you were just getting to, save the best for last, obviously. Not the best, I don't want to call it the best. We're talking about, an injury here, but
what's the biggest? I mean, a player added to the active roster is kind of a big, you don't get much bigger transactions, relatively speaking, than that.
Right. So Kevin Harris added to the 53-man roster from the practice squad in light of the Damian Harris hamstring injury. We'll get into the injuries in a second, but Harris has been limited all week with a hammy. There's been several reports that he is most likely a no-go this week and maybe for the next several weeks. So Kevin Harris looks like he's getting the green light, if you will, to be that in that sort of backup role with Pierre Strong and potentially JJ Taylor.
Yeah, it feels like it. And look, I was a little surprised that they generally like experience at that position, right? I thought it was going to be JJ Taylor getting the call. Yeah. Now, Kevin Harris impressed in the preseason. He was their leading rusher. He was impressive before that. He led the SEC in rushing yards in 2020, but he did have some trouble putting the ball on the ground. Now, it's been 6-7 weeks since we last saw him, so you figure that's something they've worked on. And I think stylistically, he's probably a better fit at this point because he's a big physical downhill runner. And as well as Ramondre ran the ball in that game against Detroit, one of the things that the coaches and his teammates really came away praising was his pass protection. Yeah. So that tells me that that's an area where they want to maximize him, is as a third down back, as a pass protector, catching the ball out of the backfield. Could be a big week for screens, right? So if they're going to do that, well, now you need somebody to kind of lessen the load on the early downs, that downhill runner. And even more so than maybe Pierre Strong, who's already on the roster, and certainly than JJ Taylor, that's right. Kevin Harris. Kevin Harris, somebody said it in the chat, is a bowling ball. So it's an interesting spot for him. I've done this spiel before. The Patriots don't play rookie running backs, and James White only had 14 touches as a rookie. Only one rookie before last year had ever had more than 100 touches in a season, a non-first round rookie. Had ever had more than 100 touches in a season in Bill Belichick's offense, and that was J.R. Redmond all the way back in the year 2000. Now, Ramondre last year, due to injuries, gets a shot, and they never took him out of the rotation. He was too good. So if Kevin Harris can hold on to the football, he might, or Pierre Strong, if he ends up getting it and Kevin Harris is the new third, but there's a chance here for these rookies. One of these two guys is going to get the ball quite a bit on Sunday. Right. And it's their chance to prove, hey, I may be a rookie, but I can still be a contributing member of this offense.
Well, it's a good way to think about it too. And I didn't really think about it this way until you sort of just mentioned it, right? You have Stevenson, who's going to be the RB1 or the guy that they want to get as many touches as possible. So you might, the average, if you will, fan or, outsider will look and say, well, why don't they bring J.J. Taylor in to be the third down scat back type of player and give Ramondre the early down touches? Same with even Pierre Strong, who's been on the roster, and Harris is just on the practice squad. But they're using Ramondre on every single down. They're morphing him into a pass catcher as much as he has like the downhill, get you 4 or 5 yards on first down back. So if they bring in Harris and he can spell those carries, then they can use Ramondre on the later downs, which they want to do. So it's basically just outlining it there. That's kind of, it's good thinking. And so let's get into that's the news. Let's get into the injury reports. We'll start with the Patriots and the big one, Mac Jones, who was limited again in practice. We've seen the last couple days that it's something that many might not see as a big deal, but I've kind of seen it as a big deal. He has the knee brace back on his leg, which using this as sort of gamesmanship, if you will, that we've talked about, having him out there as limited for the reporters and then calling him limited after he throws a few passes during practice. Once he's getting fully geared up to go out and play, he's going to get reps. They're going to give him reps that they're going to give him the reps that they want for their starter potentially. So I think seeing him in honestly a little bit more equipment out on the field is a little bit of a tell. I don't know. What say you?
I think that's fair. Look, at the very least, why are you wearing a knee brace? You're wearing a knee brace to stabilize your knee. When do you need your knee stabilized? When you're running around, when you're taking live reps.
Right.
So at the very least, he's preparing to take live reps, which, like you said, maybe wasn't the case the last couple of weeks.
Exactly.
Does that mean he's going to play this week? He may take those live reps and they see them and they say, hey, he's not ready. Needs another week.
Right.
But it's like that. It's still a big step to me. Right.
It's a tell.
One way or the other.
He's getting in one direction. Right.
Well, so I don't think it's a tell in terms of he's going to play or not going to play. Like you can't go that far, but
sure.
I think we can say he's made significant progress. I think we can feel confident saying he's made significant progress. And at this point, it may be a pain management thing more than anything else, a pain tolerance thing more than anything else. Like that's where I think that conversation starts to come in. I said from the beginning, from when he got hurt against Baltimore, I said this was the first game that we were really realistically going to talk about this. I know I'm in the minority here. A lot of people are looking at next week in the Bears, and you get the extra day of rest, and the Browns have Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney, and it's a much softer landing spot. I still think it's this week.
I'm with you.
With the way things have gone and the narrative around Bailey Zappi right now, Mac's got to play. Like, I think it's killing him. I think 100%. Zappi fever is killing him. He's going to come in and vaccinate everybody and, regain his team.
Yeah, how long were you waiting to use that one?
Bertrand. I can't take credit for that.
Okay.
Zolak and Bertrand. I don't know if they used it in that context, but vaccination is a Zolak and Bertrand thing.
Vaccinate the Zappi fever. I like it. I'm with you on that thinking. Again, it's people think that they don't listen to these storylines and listen to our nonsense in the media, but they do, and it's there. It's asked in the press conferences. You see Bailey Zappi standing up there smiling when Andrew Callahan asks him about Zappi fever. Like, it's real, and it gets in the locker room whether they like it or not, or whether they think they don't pay attention to it or not. I think he's going to want to play too. I think, again, like we said, him having the brace on, him continuing to progress, he's the Patriots quarterback, even though Bill Belichick hasn't said it yet, right? And I was going to get to this into the offense, but I kind of want to spill it in a little bit here because what Belichick says, and I feel like a broken record here because we talk about it, but what Belichick says is gospel. And there has been time and time again, for example, when Brady was suspended, Jimmy played well. And after the game, they asked, is there a chance that Jimmy takes over for Brady? And he completely laughed it off and was like, stop asking that question. That's so stupid. Tom Brady's our quarterback. Cam Newton comes in over Mac Jones. There's several weeks where Cam's our quarterback. Cam then leaves. The whole COVID thing happens, and he comes back, and Mac's out-repping him. When you started asking him about it then, he stopped saying Cam's our quarterback, and he said, well, we'll see.
Right.
After that, Mac got the job. Ever since then, Mac's been our quarterback. Mac's our quarterback. You hear the mantra. They're asking him now when when Mac Jones comes back and is healthy, is Bailey Zappi the starter? And Belichick doesn't scoff it off. He doesn't say, no, Mac's our quarterback. He says, well, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals. We'll see how it happens. I think there's something there. Call me crazy.
Yeah, I don't know. He also said that Zappi's performance is totally independent of when Mac comes back, right?
This is true.
He's really pushing Mac for the job. And that's the one definitive thing he said. I see where you're going, and you're not totally wrong for going in that direction. But the one thing that kind of, works against that theory is he was asked, does Bailey playing well buy Mac more time to get healthy? And Bill said that there's no direct correlation between the two.
Right.
So if Bailey was really pushing for the starting job, there would be. And again, I've said this before, I'll say it again. I know people think Bill Belichick doesn't give the media anything.
Right.
He never really lies to the media either. There will be lies of omission. He will omit facts, but he very rarely, if ever, says things that just blatantly are not true. So when he says Bailey Zappe's performance has no correlation to Mac Jones' return, I believe at the time he says that that's true. Now, look, things can change. Maybe Bailey Zappe plays this week and he balls out on the Browns, and suddenly Bill doesn't answer that question that way. Like you said with Cam Newton. Cam was the quarterback until he wasn't, right?
Right.
But as of right now, I just, and I agree with this too personally. I just don't think Zappe's done enough to really push it.
100% agree. Yeah.
I think him saying we'll see about Mac is more not wanting to establish any sort of timetable just for Mac returning. Like, I think if Zappe was playing poorly, I think the answer would be the same. I don't think he's saying we'll see because we'll see who the quarterback is. He doesn't want to go up there and say, yeah, Mac's still a week away, because then he looks like an idiot if Mac plays on Sunday, right? So that's more how I read that.
All fair points. Again, I'm not saying either, like you said, that Zappe is in any position to take this job yet. It's just the less time Mac's on the field and the more wins or solid performances they have under Zappe, the more that question comes up and ultimately has to get answered. Let's get back on track to the injuries because the Patriots still have plenty. Josh Uche was added to the report today. Lawrence Guy, again, limited with the shoulder. And Damian Harris limited again. We kind of touched on him. No go on Sunday. But I want to go back to Guy for a second, only because this Browns run game is going to be the key to the Patriots winning. Or stopping the Browns run game is going to be the key to winning the game. Any chance Guy gets back out there this weekend? Because he'll be a big factor if he's out there.
I mean, I think the fact he's limited is good, and
because he had a couple DNPs last week, right? He was DNP all week.
They ran a bunch of 4 defensive line looks, some 4-3 stuff, some over fronts last week. So it's clearly something they want to do. And like maybe they can manage him, right? Like that role Sam Roberts was in last week. I think he played like 16% of the defensive snaps. If you could just get that from Lawrence Guy this week, I think that would be encouraging. Shoulder's tough to tell, right? Like we've been watching Mac like a hawk at practice. How's he walking? How's he moving? You know, how does his legs look when he throws? We just watch stretching and maybe some positional drills. Shoulder is tough to so Guy didn't take part in the positional drills yesterday. We didn't get to see him today. So that's not a great sign, but I think the fact he's limited where he was a DNP last week, I think he's closer and maybe they can get him going in a limited role. Yeah.
2 guys, obviously Mac and Guy, who integral parts of this team, slowly showing progress in the injury report. So it's relatively good news on the injury front. Anyone else on the Pats that popped to you? It all seems pretty much the same. Maybe Jonathan Jones is limited with the ankle, but I mean, he's likely to play, I'm sure. Jalen Mills is still there with the hammy, but he played last week. So that cornerback room is going to continue to be in rotation for this week, I feel.
Nelson Aguilar with the hamstring is an interesting one to watch for me because we don't know what this new wide receiver rotation is going to look like. LJ's out. You know, Tyquan Thornton's back in the lineup now.
Yep.
Everybody kind of thinks he's the guy that realistically, regardless of injury, would take snaps away from Nelson Aguilar. Aguilar had that really bad drop last week that led to the pick. So they probably could, if they really needed to, and I know that there's a lot of people are going to say, well, he shouldn't be playing anyway. But whether, you know, let's even say that they think he can bounce back and they want him out there, they realistically can give him another week to heal up with Tyquan Thornton healthy. You know, hamstrings are tricky. So is he inactive? Does he have a limited role like he did last week? Like that. And I guess Jonnu Smith kind of factors into that too. He didn't play last week.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask.
If he's back, they could go with some more of that 12 personnel stuff. So those 2 guys to me are situations to watch and they feel kind of right on the line, Aguilar and Jonnu Smith.
Yeah. Well, again, we'll have another update on that after Friday's practice tomorrow. So, but right now, those are sort of the limited guys in the Patriots room. Heading into the Browns, we'll look at the Browns injury report quick here too, because Myles Garrett, who, as we know, was in that car accident several weeks ago, came back last week against the Panthers, played pretty well. He was limited on Wednesday, but then was a DNP today. It looks like it's probably just a rest situation to get him back in the fold of this Browns defense. But I guess that's something to monitor too, is Myles Garrett being a DNP today.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, anytime a player like that, you know, he Bill called him a game wrecker earlier this week, and we'll get into this later, but Bill doesn't call a lot of players that. So it stands out, and if he's not fully healthy, I think it's advantage to the Patriots. He's the one guy I think more, you talked about Nick Chubb before. I think Myles Garrett's the one guy more than anybody else that could swing this game to the Browns.
Yeah, agreed. Again, they have him. They have Clowney on the opposite side of him. So, like, that's going to be...
Who also didn't practice today.
Right.
I think for the second day in a row, he didn't practice.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm sorry. Yep. Okay, you're right. I missed that too. So, if those guys can't go, if even one of those guys can't go, that's a huge advantage, Patriots. Like you said, though, me bringing up the run game, going back to it, Joel Bitonio and Jack Conklin were listed. I believe, Conklin was a DNP, but they noted it as rest, and it wasn't injury related, so he'll be fine. But Joel Bitonio, their guard, was limited as well. And again, two guys that, as much as Nick Chubb's, the man out there in that run game, you can't do it without your offensive line. So anytime those guys are banged up, it's something to watch too. But I mean, Bitonio and Conklin have both been beasts for Cleveland for a few years now.
Yeah, the other one is Denzel Ward, who's been out with the concussion the last 2 days. I think he missed 2 days of practice with a concussion. You're probably not going to play. I know he's been off to a rough start this year, but I still think he's a tremendous player. I really do. Yeah. I think very highly of him. So him not being out there, I mean, who's the other corner from Northwestern? Why am I
Greg
blanking?
Newsome. Greg Newsome.
Greg Newsome. I have Newsome or Newton for some reason. Greg Newsome isn't bad, but they can kind of scheme around him. Denzel Ward's a guy who you're looking at when he's on his game can potentially erase a wide receiver. So I think being out there, certainly it changes the way the Browns have to play defense. They don't have a ton of depth at corner to begin with. So that could be a big flip for the Patriots.
Definitely. That's another big one to watch. There's plenty of guys out here to watch because, like we've said the last few weeks, when you get into this part of the season, the injuries are a huge factor because, again, it's football. Before we get into previewing the offensive and defensive sides of the ball here heading into Browns week, just want to talk to you quick about LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you can have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. We've done it here at CLNS Media, and it's worked out great for us so far. They make it super easy to post your job. You then add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. As we inch toward the end of 2022, LinkedIn Jobs can help you achieve that perfect end of the year with a new team member. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/beat. That's linkedin.com/beat to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Offense here, heading into Cleveland on Sunday. Clearly, last week we talked about it the last few days, right? But Bailey Zappi, third-string quarterback, coming in against the last... Well, it was an NFL defense, but they were the worst defense in the league in the Lions.
And not only that, they were basically on their second team secondary.
Exactly. Right. So a much taller task here in Cleveland this weekend. The Browns the numbers don't show it as much as you'd think, but we just talked about half of them on the injury report. This team has dudes. I think ultimately it's going to be a similar recipe to last week. However, run the dang ball with Ramondre. I know you don't want to we talked about it. You don't really want to ground and pound that guy till the end, but this is a game where you kind of have to. The Browns have a bottom 5 run defense in terms of yards per game. So I think it's going to circle around Stevenson. Then you take your shots when you can, no matter who the quarterback is.
Well, I mean, I think you can run the ball. You should be able to run the ball in this game without having to run Ramondre Stevenson into the ground, whether it's Kevin Harris, whether it's Pierre Strong, they should be able to run the ball with those two.
But how do we know that about Kevin Harris, right? It was preseason. I mean, again, we're going to want to see it before we...
Because I would assume if he's gotten this far in life, he can hit an open hole and pick up 6 yards. And it's more about... No, I don't mean that to I don't mean that to come at you,
right.
But the Browns' issues with run defense aren't because backs are running away from them. It's not like, the Browns' running offense is so good. Look, they have a great offensive line, but you have Nick Chubb turning 8-yard runs into 20-yard runs on a regular basis. with the Browns, I mean, they're giving up a lot of ground. Their defensive front just wants to rush the passer. They're very aggressive with roughing the pass. They're getting all the way up the field, and teams are running the ball behind them, for 5-6 yards a carry.
Sure.
At the very least, these guys should be able to hit the holes, and you hope they hold on to the football. That was an issue for Kevin Harris early in the in training camp in the preseason.
Right.
But I feel good about whoever it is running the football in this game. In some ways, I think really on both sides of the ball, the Browns are just sort of a slightly better version of the Lions, right? It's a run-heavy offense with a replacement-level starting quarterback, and it's a defense that isn't great, but if you have to pick a strength, it's the pass rushers.
Right.
I'll take Jacoby Brissett over Jared Goff. I'll take Nick Chubb over Jamal Williams. Obviously, I'll take Myles Garrett over Aiden Hutchinson, but they're built really similarly. And by the way, you know who else is built really similarly? The Patriots.
Right.
But I think a lot of what the Patriots did last week, game plan wise, is applicable in this game as well, just with a higher level of execution.
So now, I guess the main story on the offense is continue to be diving a little bit deeper into this quarterback situation. We both are of the mindset Mac's going to play. It's more of an opinion-based question, I guess, but where do you think this offense goes if it's Mac versus Zappe? Because last week Zappe played well, but they definitely had the handcuffs on him a little bit. Are they going to continue to run this type of offense with Mac at the helm? Is it going to help or hurt them with Mac at the helm if they change the offense that way?
I mean, I would hope they've learned certain things from running this offense. Right. It's not very explosive, the offense they're running with Bailey Zappe. It's very safe, like you said. But, man, the difference that play action has made, the difference that, some of the draws they're running have made, some of this under center stuff, I would like to see them add that to what they were doing with Mac. I do think they go back to what they were doing with Mac, because let's not forget, I know people want to focus on the turnovers. First of all, 3 of the 5 turnovers, objectively not his fault. Second of all, around those, he's slinging the ball around the yard. I mean, he put up, over 300 yards on the Ravens, right? Yeah. I think it was 325 yards last time we saw him. So there is, they were leading the NFL in big plays. There is big play potential in that offense. It's just a matter of getting things under control. I think Mac being on the same page as his receivers, which we'll see where they're at after they miss a couple weeks, would go a long way. And again, a lot of those interceptions are not, you can kind of eliminate them with basic coaching. Right. So, and the penalties too have cleaned up. Like a lot of the issues that happened with the Mac Jones offense have been cleaned up. Now it's just, can you add some of these other elements? I felt like, again, it was explosive. There was big play potential, but it was very one-dimensional.
Yeah.
Can you add some of these other dimensions you're running with Bailey Zappe when Mac Jones is on the field? Can you please run play action? Can you run screens to guys like Kendrick Bourne and Tyquan Thornton? It's almost, can you ask your receivers to do a little more? Not because Mac can't do it all himself, but because it's very predictable, because you're only asking him to operate on his own, and you're not giving any change of pace looks. So I think they'll go back to a version of what they were running when Mac was healthy. I just hope it's expanded a little bit more, as it should have been over the course of these couple of weeks, as you'd hope they would have done when Mac was out. Instead, it will just, the process is a little different.
And it's a good point that you bring up too. The fact that, I mean, we have the Zappe fever here in New England right now. Mac was 1-3 as a starter, 1-2, wherever that broke up. But like, the offense they ran against the Ravens, yes, there were turnovers there, but he was slinging the ball around the field. They were making big plays. Aguilar had a few plays. Kendrick Bourne again made a few plays. So it's like the pieces are there to make big plays happen, and you get Tyquan Thornton back, where last week he didn't do much his first game back. I think he had like 2 catches for 7 yards, but there's big play potential, like you said, to be had, especially with Thornton on the outside. I think with the potential of Aguilar's injury coming into play and Lil Jordan Humphrey maybe not being elevated due to the fact that they might elevate a guy like J.J. Taylor potentially to have an extra running back there. Thornton's going to get reps again this week, and I think if Mac's out there especially, they're going to try and dial up some big plays for him.
And they need to, because that's
right.
That's what this offense with Zappe's really missing, is that down the field shot. And you're just, look, you can beat the Detroit Lions playing like that. Some of these other teams, maybe not so much.
Exactly. Last thing I wanted to note on the offense was basically just the fact that I know, things turn over every every season, personnel changes, play calls change, whatever. But Ramondre Stevenson's first 100-yard game as an NFL running back came against the Browns last year. It was that game, I think it was October, maybe November in Gillette. It was Mac's best game throwing the ball, and it was Stevenson's best game running the ball to that date. So, again, things change over, but I feel like there's maybe something to be had with the fact that, Stevenson dominated this team before and Mac did as well.
I certainly think so. I think on the other side of the ball, last year's game's a little less relevant because they didn't have Nick Chubb in that game, and it's a different quarterback.
Right. Yep.
It was Baker, and Baker got hurt, and it was Keenum, right? Case Keenum was the backup.
Case Keenum was there. Yeah.
But no, they seem to have the recipe last year. And look, Myles Garrett got his. He got his 1 sack, but I thought they handled it pretty well. I will say this, for all the talk about running the football and what they're going to do, regardless of who the quarterback is, I think the biggest matchup when the Patriots have the ball, and I think that the matchup that will decide this game, forget Nick Chubb, the matchup to me that will decide this game is Trent Brown and Isaiah Wynn against Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. And I talked about this a little bit before. Bill Belichick earlier this week called those two guys game wreckers. And Bill Belichick will wax poetic about pretty much whatever player you ask him about. I always like to make the joke that the best player in the NFL at any given time is whoever Bill Belichick talked about most recently, right? Nobody does this better than this guy. Nobody works harder than this guy. But you can sometimes tell when he's a little more genuine with that praise. And one that I've noticed for defensive players, when he calls a player a game wrecker or a game ruiner, like the guys that he's talked about that way, I went through and I looked back at some transcripts. It's not a long list. It's both Bosa brothers, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, and Derwin James. Those are elite,
high-end,
all-pro, right. Now, look, I'm not saying he's wrong to include Garrett in that category. He absolutely belongs. He might be the best player on that list, besides Aaron Donald. But that tells you they know, right?
Right.
If Bill thinks that guy can ruin the game, I'm inclined to believe him. And the only way you're going to prevent those guys from ruining the game is Isaiah Wynn and Trent Brown really showing up. And look, you're chipping with the running backs and the tight ends, and there's other players.
Yeah, you got to scheme it up.
The guards, but I mean, it falls on the shoulders mostly of those tackles. So if they can keep those guys out of things, they're going to run the ball well on this defense. They're going to be able to stay in their comfort zone. Jacoby Brissett, good, not great. They should be able to force a turnover on the defensive side of the ball and potentially take the Browns out of a situation where they can overly use Nick Chubb. And there you go. That's basically what happened last week. If you let Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney start sniffing around in the backfield, regardless of who the quarterback is, it could get out of hand pretty quickly because that's what those guys do, specifically Garrett. So that, to me, when the Patriots have the ball, is the biggest matchup I'm focused on.
I agree. It's one we'll look forward to, and we'll obviously have to check out the injuries as well because, again, those two guys were...
Right, assuming those guys play. Good point.
Right, of course. Quick question, quick answer on the offense before we get into the defense.
Yeah.
If Zappy's at the helm, does he play as well as he did against the Lions last week, and can they win with Zappy?
They can win with him. Does he play as well as he did last week? I'd like to think he'll be a little better. He has an NFL start under his belt. I don't think that the script flips, right? I don't think he totally, I don't think he's going to win AFC Offensive Player of the Week or anything and pull this.
But you also don't think he's going to curdle. Yeah.
So that's where it goes back to Garrett, right?
Yeah.
I think if they give him a clean pocket, he'll be more or less what he was last week. Without Denzel Ward, that Browns secondary is what it is. He should have opportunities to throw the ball. If Garrett's getting on him, like Zappy, he didn't really face any pressure last week. He never faced a ton of pressure at Western Kentucky the way they ran their offense.
Right.
What's he going to look like when Myles Garrett's bearing down on him if it gets to that point? So that, that scares me a little bit with Zappy. That's the one variable that we really, really don't know with him at this point.
Right. We'll see what happens. It should be interesting. Again, still a question mark in the quarterback room. Me and Barth are both of the mindset that Mac's going to trudge it out and play, but we'll see the decision they make coming over the next few days. Let's get into the defense against this Browns offense. The Browns offense, they're the 6th highest scoring offense in the NFL, and they're the leading rushing attack in the NFL, averaging 192 yards per game on the ground. Nick Chubb leads the league in rushing yards. I'm of the mindset that Nick Chubb's the best pure running back in the NFL. There's plenty of guys who have the other skill sets, pass catching, maybe elusiveness, etc. But Nick Chubb is the best downhill tackle breaker running back in the NFL. The Pats defense is in the middle of the pack against run defenses in 2022. I guess the question is, Alex, can they contain Nick Chubb on Sunday?
I think they can contain him, right? What does that mean? They're not holding him to like 20 yards. Right. If they do that, it's because they scored on their first drive, forced a turnover, scored on their next drive, and the Browns are throwing for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
What containing Nick Chubb is to me is he's going to get his 4, 5, 6 yards a pop off the offensive line. You can't let those turn into 15 and 20-yard runs, which is what he does so well, breaking tackles. You have to get him down at the point of contact. That's technically sound tackling. That's 11 guys swarming the football, because then you can create maybe some third mediums. It's very, very tough to get this Browns team in third and long.
Yeah.
But you can create some third mediums where maybe you put the ball in Jacoby Brissett's hands, and that's your opportunity to take advantage. That's, again, what they did against the Lions last week.
Right.
That 3rd and 2 becomes a 4th and 9. Now it's totally on Jared Goff to make the play. Boom, strip sack, touchdown, and the Lions really never recovered from that moment, right? So that to me, it's going to be great if they can contain him in the backfield. It's going to be awesome, and maybe they'll do it a couple times. I don't think it's realistic to ask them to do. I don't think it's realistic.
You're good.
To expect them to do that all game. Right. Instead, I think what it's more about is just not letting him break those big ones. And, if he gets 4, he gets 4, but that's it. And the Browns are going to have to find other ways to pick up chunk plays on offense.
Right.
Which, by the way, obviously, this is how a lot of teams beat the Patriots. They have a strong running attack. This is what killed the Patriots down the stretch last year. Teams were stacking the box. They were taking away that run, because when the Patriots were on that winning streak, it was big plays from Damian Harris, Ramondre Stevenson that kind of cued a lot of those wins.
Right.
And teams keyed in on that more after the bye. Patriots couldn't find the big play elsewhere. They couldn't find it throwing the football, and that was a big part of their downfall. Same idea. You've got to force them into a situation where they feel like they have to take the ball out of Nick Chubb's hands. Like, they're not going to get that big play if they just keep handing the ball off to Nick Chubb, because they're going to think that coming in, and they should. You got to take that option away.
And again, I was going to say, it's a cliche, I guess. It's the age-old saying, right? You can't stop Nick Chubb. You can only hope to contain him. But containing Nick Chubb he's going to get his, but it's not allowing him to break those tackles and, like you said, break off those 25-yard runs, because then that sets them up in 1st and 10, and then they just end up running the ball to Nick Chubb again. Where if you can stop him running the football and breaking those tackles, keeping them in their 2nd and 3rd down stretch, then you have Jacoby Brissett, who has to throw the ball against this Patriots secondary that keeps getting better, like literally in front of our eyes every single week. I'm obsessed with both of these units right now, at cornerback and at safety. I was worried about corner coming into this year during camp. They didn't look great. There was, Terrence Mitchell and Malcolm Butler were in the room, and it was like, Jack Jones is young, Marcus Jones is young. What can you expect from them? But take away Marcus Jones for a second, obviously. Jack Jones has been a stud. I forget if we talked about it on here, but he's in top 5 for Defensive Rookie of the Year now. He looks like a rotational player that they're going to continue to trust. We were wondering about the trust in Jack Jones going into last week. After there was a lot of boomer bust plays in Green Bay, but they tested him a couple times. The Lions did against Jared Goff, and he passed the test, I thought. So again, if they could get Jacoby to throw, I think that they're going to be in trouble against this secondary, because too, you look at the Browns personnel and you have Amari Cooper, who's Amari Cooper. He's a solid wide receiver in the league. David Njoku, who's probably having his best year as tight end. But then after that, it's Donovan Peoples-Jones and like guys like David Bell and Anthony Schwartz, who are low-tier wide receivers in the league.
Yeah, I'd agree. And Cooper's even banged up this week. He's on the injury. He was on the injury report, I believe, today. I'm trying to find it real quick here. Yeah, he didn't practice. Or sorry, he's a full participant for 2nd day in a row. Not injury related, but who knows what's going on there.
Right.
I agree with you on that. I think that you saw last week what Kyle Duggar can do against a quality tight end in TJ Hawkinson. Yep. I trust him to take care of David Njoku. I don't think that that's much to worry about. Frankly, Jack Jones and Jalen Mills on Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones, flip a coin at this point. I probably go Mills on Cooper, the veteran on the veteran, right? Let Jack Jones go against Peoples-Jones, a bit of a younger receiver. David Bell really does not scare me in the slot. Really, the third guy to me is Anthony Schwartz, just because he does have that rare speed, but that's where Jonathan Jones goes, right? Jonathan Jones probably could take Amari Cooper as well. I'd be a little hesitant putting him on Donovan Peoples-Jones because of the size. I don't want to say it's a mismatch for the Patriots. They have the corners to cover everybody, but there's no, again, outside of Jones and Schwartz for the speed when Schwartz is on the field, which won't be every down. There's no real like, oh yeah, he's on that guy. He's on that guy. Like, you can kind of spin the dial however you want. Maybe that means the Patriots play some zone in this game, try to bait Jacoby with some looks, things like that. But the secondary should be able to keep this thing locked up.
Yeah, agreed. Sorry, I got something coming down the pipe for our Thursday Night Football that I had to get in there and I wanted to look at. But yeah, so again, like, they'll rotate those. You said they'll rotate those corners. I'm not worried about the cornerbacks on these receivers, even though it's guys like Amari Cooper, who, like you said, might be banged up. But any other final thoughts on the defense here? I think that the cookbook is pretty clear on both sides of the ball here. Obviously, me and you, Alex, aren't the game planners, or we're not in those meeting rooms every day. But I feel like, again, it's the cookbooks. It's right there. You just got to kind of make the cake.
Yeah, again, I think it's the same thing as last week. I think that there's a lot of copy and paste you can do from last week. It's simply just executing at a higher level because there's better players on the other side. But the Browns and the Lions are built very, very similar to each other.
They're built similar, but again, it's like there's dudes, there's guys, real high quality NFL players on the Browns where they're few and far between on the Detroit Lions. All right, so that's what me and Alex kind of have on the offensive and defense here. We went through it quicker than normal, but again, like I said, the cookbook's pretty much there. We'll see what they can do. Let's talk a little bit about this Thursday Night Football matchup coming down tonight in Chicago. I finally got where the game is going to be at prior, so we don't have to go look it up. Yeah, Commanders at Bears. The reason I stopped talking earlier when we were going through the defense because I was trying to pre-prep for Thursday Night Football here, and we thought it was going to be the return of N'Keal Harry. He's inactive tonight.
It's next week. It's just going to be that more dramatic.
It's going to be next week, next Monday night. In Foxborough will be potentially the return of N'Keal Harry to NFL football since he was traded for a 7th-round pick earlier this offseason. Commanders at Bears. Call me crazy. There's something in the air today with the Dan Snyder news as well, but I like the Commanders tonight in Chicago.
So this is going to be a blowout one way or the other because
you just don't know which way it's going to go.
Well, here's the thing. We all heard what Ron Rivera said this week, right? About Carson Wentz.
It's the quarterback.
You feel like there's going to be an extreme response to that. It's just which way, right? Is Carson Wentz going to show his coach, hey, man, I'm not the problem. Look what I'm doing out here. We going to get MVP Carson Wentz? Or is it just such a kick in the nads to hear your coach say that he's going to come out and lay an egg? I feel like the Commanders are going to have a very extreme game. I don't know if it's going to be extremely good or extremely bad, but they're going to have a very extreme game. I'll tell you this. This game is going to be an absolute mess. And I cannot wait. I had the time of my life watching that game last week. They put that stat up in the 4th quarter that said there's never been a game with 2 quarterbacks with 4+ Pro Bowls each that did not have a touchdown. The second they put that stat up, I was locked in. I was ready to go. I lost it when Stephon Gilmore had that interception. So I look, there's no such thing as bad football. If you're watching football, you're having a good time. When it gets a little, I don't think there's bad football. There's weird football. I love weird football. This game screams weird football. I can't wait.
Screams weird football again. Going back to last Thursday though, quickly, I don't think we touched on it the other day. It's like, I fell asleep after the Broncos had the ball going into the red zone. And I was like, 2 minutes left. They're going to sit it out, whatever. Broncos win. I wake up and the Colts win in overtime. It was like, going back, watching the highlights, it was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And tonight might get even crazier. It looks like the Commanders are 1-point favorites. I believe they were originally underdogs, and it might have moved in the Commanders'
It was
favor.
a pick'em. It was a pick'em, I thought, initially.
Okay, maybe you're right.
A
but
game like this 100% should be a pick'em.
Oh,
Forget
yeah.
it.
There's no side here. As a
just
sports
pick a
betting
team-
writer, there's no side here. Yeah.
Pick a team to win,
Mhm.
and there's going to be enough going on that trying to root for a spread and do all the math in your head and all that, it's just not. No. Just pick a team, root for a team. It's that simple. That's what this game should be.
There's no edge in this game. I will point out again too, the reason I like the Commanders, it's I guess it's stupid logic, because Carson Wentz threw for like 350 yards last week. He slings the ball around the yard for good or for bad. He made some bonehead plays at the goal line, but like, I don't know. There's something about Carson Wentz on Thursday. I think I read a stat where he's like very, very good on Thursday night. He's thrown a lot of touchdowns. He's limited his turnovers. I don't know why. Because again, it's tough to kind of put that into, oh, it's real because it's Thursday night. It's the same with like Kirk Cousins in prime. Shouldn't say that. Kirk Cousins in prime time is really bad, but specifically Monday night, he was losing a lot of games.
Yeah.
Anyway, Commanders are my pick. What do you think? Who's your winner? Just take one.
I guess I'll go Commanders based off.
Okay.
No, you know what? I'm going Bears. I think Wentz turtles. I think he turtles.
Okay.
I think that what Ron Rivera said really gets to him. It's also raining in Chicago, or it was raining in Chicago today. I don't know if it will still be raining by the time the game kicks off, but
yeah,
for a team like the Bears that loves to run the football and get sloppy, that's advantage Bears. So the one other cool storyline in this now I'm thinking about is Brian Robinson starting this week, right? For Washington.
that's good stuff.
Shot a couple months ago. So I hope Brian Robinson has a very good game, obviously, and Roll Tide as well.
Yes.
But I'm going to say the Bears because it's funnier.
All right.
It's funnier if Ron Rivera dumps on his quarterback during the week and then he comes out and lays an egg. I'm going with that. I'm going with Bears.
I like it. Then maybe we can see some Sam Howell in action for the Commanders if they do end up moving on from Carson Wentz. All right. If we want to, listeners, come on in and we'll do some quick Q&A in the chat. We don't have any coming up yet, so I guess we can start off with Patriots are running there. We can go into a college football minute as questions come in, and we can kind of mix those all together.
Anybody got one real quick? Patriots question? Here we go. Because let's end it with the college football.
Oh, all right, cool. Yeah, you're right. How can the Patriots improve their offensive productivity in the red zone? It's a good question, and I think I'll let you get into it a little bit more in depth, but I think it's gonna be like a make or break with whether it's Mac or Zappy.
I think regardless, their biggest issue, they've actually scored, and it goes back to last year. It's really the same issues it was last year. They can score from, just outside the red zone, the 25-yard line. They can score from inside the 5. It's that in between where they really struggle. And I don't even know that it's a strategic thing. It's turnovers and penalties. That's what's been derailing them is turnovers and penalties. They've just got to, like, it sounds simple. I know it sounds like no duh, but they just got to play less sloppy in the red zone. I think the call, like they've been more conservative with Zappy. They don't really seem to want to throw the ball in the red zone. That's part of it. But even going back to Mac, is just if they clean it up, the calls are there. They've just got to clean it up.
Yeah, I agree. Another question that just came up, which I wanted to add on. We talked about this earlier in the week. Players from the Panthers you would like to see the Pats add. I heard it on 98.5 today with Zolak and Bertrand. Breer was on, and he mentioned Shaq Thompson, the linebacker with Carolina. I think that he would be a good addition to this linebacker room. That we talked about it during the injury report a little bit with Munson coming in as well. But like, he's a guy he's a little bit older, and he's a very versatile linebacker, which is kind of the type of defense they've wanted to play here. And with the constant turnover, I think that Shaq Thompson just fits. He seems like a Belichick type player. He was also drafted by the Boston Red Sox in baseball, which you could bring him home as well. But that's one guy where I realistically could see them potentially getting into the fold if Shaq Thompson's for sale and there is a fire sale in Carolina.
Yeah, like if we're being realistic, if I could pick one guy, it's probably DJ
Brian
Moore.
Burns. Yeah,
Brian Brad. No, you're right. Actually, yeah, it'd be Dude, Burns and Judon. Like hell yeah. We're talking about bookends, Clowney and Garrett, right? Realistically, Shaq Thompson would make a ton of sense. He's a very Patriots-like linebacker. Yeah. His contract set up in a way that it would make sense for the Panthers to want to deal him. The Patriots could maybe extend him, lessen the cap hit that's coming up. He's 28 years old. Signed through age 30, you sign him through age like 31, 32, you lessen that cap hit. And again, just a very Patriots linebacker. Being realistic, I think that's the guy. This is an interesting one along those lines. In theory, this actually does make a lot of sense for the Patriots. They get a guy who's probably a little bit better than Aguilar, and the Panthers get a guy who's coming off the books next year, whereas Robbie Anderson signed for another 2 years. The problem is the Panthers don't want players. They don't want to be good. They're tanking. They want CJ Stroud. They want Bryce Young. They're not going to do this. They're going to say, why do we want Nelson Aguilar? Give us a pick. So it's an interesting idea, but this is not, I don't think this kind of trade the Panthers are making right now.
Again, they're not trying to bring in players. They're trying to bring in assets and picks. There was one more that, let me see if I can find it. I'm not going to answer this one because this is your cup of tea, but I figured you'd like to see it. Draft talk already in week 6.
Yeah.
So if you got any answers, go for it. But I'll find the other one I was looking for.
I'll just say real quick, I don't think they'll be picking high enough because this guy's a potential top 5 pick. Peter Skaronski is the left tackle for Northwestern. He's pretty damn good. Like, he's going to be that guy in this. And there's I like the depth in this tackle class, but I assume this question is about replacing Isaiah Wynn. Peter Skaronski would be that guy. They're going to have to finish with like 3-4 wins to have a shot at him.
Yeah, we'll get more in depth in the draft. Once the season, of course, we'll get to that. Last question. It has to do with Zappe, sort of, because they've ran a lot of 6-0 lineman sets, putting Marcus Cannon in that tight end eligible position. Do you think that, and we mentioned this a little bit as far as them running the Zappe offense when Matt comes back, do you think this is something they continue to run? Because I think it's worked out pretty well for them so far.
Yeah, they didn't have the personnel for it before they signed Marcus Cannon. So I think that's a part of it. It should still be a big part of what they do. I would hope so.
Agreed.
I'm going to slide in one more question to transition us to the college football minute, because I get asked this question a lot, and it's a good question. I understand why people ask this. It's tough to watch college football. There you go.
Yeah, there we go.
It's tough to watch college football when you've watched, from New England, we really only watch pro sports. It's all about a title. The thing to understand about college football, and I know people are going to hear this and say, what are you talking about? That sucks. That's stupid. If you actually open your mind to watching it like this, it's a ton of fun. College football is not, unless you're like one of 4 programs, unless you're Alabama, Georgia, or Ohio State, it's not really about the national championship.
Right.
Like, that's not, in the NFL, every team in training camp, our goal is to win a Super Bowl. Our goal is to win a Super Bowl. That's not really what this is. It's the goal in college football is to win your conference and win a bowl game. Mm-hmm. That's what these teams judge themselves on, right? The college football championship is not the equivalent of the Super Bowl. It would be more like the equivalent of if the Super Bowl winner played the winner of the Grey Cup, which is the CFL championship, right? So it's cool to follow the college football chase. It's almost like another conference, the playoff chase. But really, you're watching, and this is how I started to really fall in love with it and would open the door for me. You're really watching like 7 or 8 different leagues.
Yeah.
All happening at once. And
they all feel different.
Right. And look, they all play football differently. And
right.
The SEC stylistically is different from the Big 10, is different from the Big 12, is different from the Pac-12. The ACC really, it's all over the map. Mm-hmm. But, the SEC chase is always close. And it's not always Bama that wins the SEC. By the way, they've made the playoffs quite a bit as a non-SEC champion. Big 10, it's the same teams, but there's 5 or 6 teams that rotate. Like Ohio State's going to run away this year, but you get Michigan, you get Michigan State in the mix.
Penn State's been in there.
Penn State's in there. Wisconsin's usually pretty good, right? The Pac-12's had nobody. I mean, that's been wide open for years. This year, it's really fun where Utah, USC, and UCLA all might be playoff contenders. And in the Big 12, that's wide open as well. TCU, Kansas, if Jalen Daniels is healthy. I'm still not ruling out Texas now that Quinn Ewers is back. So to reply to the person who just commented here, I don't watch F1. I don't really know how that works. But if you enjoy F1 and that's the comp you can make, absolutely. So that I tell people that all the time. How do I get into college football? That's the first thing I say. don't worry about the national championship. That's not really what it's about. It's about the conference. Here's the three things every college football team wants to do: win the conference, win a bowl game, beat your rival. Those are, if you do those three things, unless you're Alabama, Ohio State, or Georgia, if you do those three things, you had a successful season as a college football program, playoff or now. That's if you watch it through that lens, it's really a ton of fun because there actually is a ton of parity.
Barth, what an outstanding college football minute monologue right there. That's exactly why we love this damn sport. It's great. We have a great weekend coming up. If you didn't catch all that, really, you have to go back and listen to what Alex said, because that's, like you said, that's the reason you watch college football. It's not all about the national championship as much as it seems like it is. There's recruiting aspects. There's guys getting to the league. There's so much more than just the national championship, which is, outstanding in itself, but there's more to it. We have a great weekend of college ball coming up. The first game in the Big Ten. Number 10 Penn State at number 5 Michigan. Two top 10 teams going at it.
Wait, hang on. Are we going to build up to the biggest game? Is that your plan here?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I need to slip one in before we even get to that, because there's a very big game that nobody knows about this week, and that is the Dakota marker. North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. There is NFL talent in this game. There are guys who will go in the draft in this game. Everybody knows about North Dakota State and the Fargo Dome, and they win all these FCS national championships.
Carson Wentz, Trey Lance, there's guys that come out of there. Christian Watson.
Well, South Dakota State's they're number 1 in the country. South Dakota State's number 2. Mm-hmm. So this is 1 and 2 in the country. It's a big-time rivalry. This is exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yep.
Huge game at the FCS level. It's at South Dakota State this year, so no Fargo Dome, but awesome game coming up this weekend. North Dakota State, South Dakota State. Get it on, I have like a 3 or 4 TV setup when I'm watching college football. That will probably start as screen 3 because I believe it's at 3:30. So, Alabama, but that'll probably move up to screen 2 at some point later in the game.
Am I correct in saying that Patriots running back Pierre Strong went to South Dakota State?
South Dakota State, yeah, Pierre Strong. So if you want rooting interest in that one, that's the other thing I tell people. I don't know who to root for. You can root for college teams for any reason. You like the mascot, you like the colors, you had family members who went there. There's an NFL player you like that went there. Like, no reasons
logos,
too small.
colors, anything.
Like, and there's kind of some people make this joke that, and people have tried to prove it, that when a college team wins, the alums play better the next day in the NFL. So Pierre Strong might kind of have a somewhat big role for the Patriots this week.
That's something to watch.
Huge win for his alma mater. Maybe he gets that little boost, right?
Yep. I like it.
Anyway,
it's good. It's normally I root for North Dakota State because I liked Carson. I liked Trey Lance when they were there because they were like guys who you watched in not so big games, if you will. So you got me my rooting interest now with Pierre Strong there, though.
There you go.
Penn State, Michigan, mentioned it. Big Big Ten game. Two teams that the winner will continue to vie for a playoff spot here. I don't know if you have any thoughts about it, but it's just going to be one of those like noontime Big Ten games that's just going to be gritty and fun to watch.
Well, it's going to be interesting because neither of these teams have played anybody, right? They're both ranked in the top 10, but neither one has a quality win. Penn State beat Auburn, but Auburn low-key sucks. We didn't really know that when they played, but we know now.
Right.
So we're going to learn something about at least one of these teams in this game, and that's what's going to be interesting. I mean, if Michigan wins, they have a playoff chance. If Penn State wins, then we kind of see where Michigan goes because Michigan's schedule gets pretty tough from here. So it's going to be interesting to see. That's a real learning game. This game's going to be a real learning experience. I'll say that.
Definitely.
Also, Blake Borum, Michigan's running back, screams future Patriot.
Sure does. There's plenty of guys that do. He's definitely one of them. Okay, there's one game that I want to get to before the big dog here. It's USC versus Utah. We talked about the Pac-12 a little bit, but these are two teams, again, that maybe the winner vies for a playoff spot if they get there. Obviously, USC has the Lincoln Riley. It's the Lincoln Riley show with him and Caleb Williams and Jordan Addison. And it's fun. USC football feels like it's important again. But Utah is right at their heels, and they kind of have been for the last couple of years. I believe that game's in Utah. It is in Utah. So that adds a little bit of a wrinkle to it. Any additional thoughts on that game besides if Caleb Williams continues to impress, he can sort of make we'll get into Heisman a little bit in the last game, but he can still stick around with Bryce Young out maybe in the Heisman race.
Yeah, I love this game because you have, all the pomp and circumstance of Hollywood and this, high flying electric offense. And that Utah team, they are scrappy. They play hard, defensive focused team. They run the ball on offense. I had USC's playoff pick coming into the season.
Yep.
If they win this game, look, they still got to play UCLA, who's going to be tough. But if they can win a game like this, that shows that they're legit on the national stage. So I love, I think Utah is going to give them a game. I think USC pulls it out, though. I really believe in how talented this team is.
I agree. That's a game that I'm looking forward to again, because I've been a USC guy for the last couple of years. Me and Barth have been giving me crap about it with Keaton Slovis and that whole thing. They've totally transferred over from the who was their head coach before Lincoln Riley that they canned? It wasn't Helton. There was somebody in between, wasn't there?
Yeah, I can't remember.
But regardless, there's been turnover at USC. They're very exciting. Again, it feels like you said, the Hollywood vibe. So that's one you should look out for. Any more games before we get to the final one?
Yeah.
NC State, Syracuse.
NC State, Syracuse, huge game in the ACC.
Syracuse is undefeated.
Dome. But they also haven't really played anybody, so it's interesting. I also really like Devin Leary, so that's going to be a very fun watch.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, Kentucky is an interesting game. I think Will Levis is supposed to be back for that, so Kentucky a chance to kind of catch themselves after a rough couple weeks. Oklahoma State, TCU. TCU just knocked off Kansas, but Oklahoma State, I think right now, is the favorite to win the Big 12 because Quinn Ewers was hurt and they got that 2-game jump on Texas.
Yep.
This is a tough test, so that's going to be a Big Ten game. But, of course, the game of the week.
Game of the week, guys. We are trying to bring this College Football Minute to bring college football life to you guys. If there's one single game you watch this weekend, it's Alabama at Tennessee. There are so many different angles to this game that I just cannot wait to watch. Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker has been a top 3 quarterback in the country all season. Alabama quarterback Bryce Young, one of the best quarterbacks in the league or in the country. He's hurt. Will he play? Will he not? They have Jalen Milroe backing him up. So there's plenty of on-field talent. That's exciting. Barth, I think I tagged you in a tweet regarding it, but they approved color rush uniforms for this.
Oh, that was a joke account.
Was it a joke? Because I thought it was dead serious. I thought I looked into it and saw it again.
Guy, he got me too. He tweeted something about Tennessee putting in an express order for new goalposts already because they're worried about their goalposts.
That's the same guy?
That's the same. It was the same guy because I saw the color rush post too when I was looking through.
Okay, well, whether there's color rush or not, good game. But I also thought I heard, and this could be false true for all I know. I guess I'm a fake news magnet right now. But checkered end zones, checkered uniforms for Tennessee. Then potentially, I thought I saw something there. There's going to be some sort of aspect outside the game that place is just going to be bumping.
Look, you don't need anything new. It's an old school game. It's one of the oldest played rivalries in college football. It's the first time both teams have ever been ranked in the top 6. I mean, this is the biggest third Saturday in October in history.
Yeah.
I don't need bells and whistles. I need Bryce Young on the field.
I know. That's what I'm waiting on.
Let's not do this with a backup quarterback.
I know.
And
Jahmyr Gibbs too, another Heisman guy in there. There's so much talent on the field on Saturday night.
Here's the question: how many future Patriots are playing in this game? It's multiple. It's definitely multiple.
It's definitely multiple.
I'd say draft picks at least one. Total future probably 4 or 5. At least.
Undrafted, it's out the roof. I mean, I just mentioned him, but a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs, who I don't know his draft profile, but that's a guy who. Again, it's like I mentioned it last week when we were talking about letting Stevenson be the bell cow here, and we're going back to the Patriots for a second here, but letting Stevenson be the bell cow and Harris be the spell guy. They're not going to want to pay Stevenson on his second contract either, so continue to just rush running backs in here like crazy. I would love to see a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs.
Gibbs is going to be a first round pick though. I mean,
I know
for that time. Like they're not going to get him, but he can play. Kid's special.
Yeah,
sure.
So he's a special guy. Will Anderson's there in Alabama too. It's just studs in this game. Tennessee, I did not see them as being this good this year, this late.
And, Hendon Hooker took a leap, man. Hendon Hooker took a leap. He went into the lab and put in the work this offseason.
Yeah, he's been dominant. So again, a bunch of Heisman candidates here. I went and checked out the Heisman odds, and I believe Give me 1 second to pull these up. I believe Hendon Hooker is second behind CJ Stroud. Stroud's the overwhelming favorite here, but we talked last time we had the College Football Minute on here. You mentioned Hendon Hooker putting himself in the Heisman race. I kind of scoffed it off, but he's done that since the last time we talked about it. He's second behind CJ Stroud, who again he's the overwhelming favorite at like negative odds, but Hendon Hooker and Caleb Williams are there too. I mean, do you have a Heisman thought pick here? I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson's up there too, so it kind of feels like it's CJ Stroud's award to lose right now with the Bryce Young injury.
Yeah. Bryce Young missing multiple games. You know, I honestly don't think he's out. He comes back this week, puts up, 300 something yards. Talk about a Heisman moment. But right. I think it's between those three quarterbacks you named, in Stroud, Williams, and Hooker.
Yeah.
Maybe Gibbs gets in the mix. I just don't know. The one I wonder if Jordan Addison could push Caleb Williams, right? That's like, could you get a Devonta Smith, Mac Jones thing? If right. CJ Stroud falls off and Hendon Hooker falls off and it's down to those two guys, personally, I think, pound for pound, Jordan Addison's a better player than Caleb Williams. And sometimes that's what the voters look at.
Right.
But I think it's going to be one of those three quarterbacks. I see people bringing up Will Anderson in the chat. Will Anderson should be a Heisman candidate, but the voters are stupid and they don't consider defense. So he gets my vote, but it's not going to happen realistically.
Exactly. He's the best player in the country right there, bar none. But like you said, they don't get it. I don't believe I see a single Will Anderson's there, but I believe Will Anderson's the only defensive player on BetOnline's list. So
I mean, there's nobody else that's really like.
I know.
This is an offense-heavy draft to begin with.
It's an offense-heavy sport.
No, but like last year was a defense-heavy draft, though. Last year,
that's fair.
Their defense still matters. I know people don't want to think it matters, but it still matters anyway.
Yeah, it does. Any last thoughts on the College Football Minute before we wrap this thing up? Besides watching the crap out of Alabama at Tennessee this weekend.
I mean, there's games on this slate I love that we didn't even get to. So if there was ever a weekend to start college football, this is kind of it.
Do it. I was gonna say we touched on the best ones, but there's plenty out there. We'll continue to bring this back in the fold, but I had to get it in at least this week because again, some really good football going on this week in the NCAA. We'll switch the backer back to our Patriots beat as we wrap this thing up. Alex, we went just a little over an hour again. Obviously, it's always good to talk ball with you. We'll be back on Sunday night after the game, and then next week twice as well. We will recap this game, get into the Chicago game, the return of N'Keal Harry to Gillette Stadium. So we'll be all over that. There's ample storylines next week to get to. But Patriots are at Cleveland this weekend. Me and Barth gave you our recaps here. There's some news in here as well. So you can read all of Alex's stuff at 985thesportshub.com. You can follow him on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Obviously, I got all my stuff on CLNSmedia.com and here on the CLS Media Network. Follow me on Twitter at Mike Kadlick. Pats at Browns, 1 p.m. this weekend on Sunday, so check it out and make sure to keep it here for all our stuff. So we will see you guys next week. Thanks for watching.